Welcome to Cruise News, your daily update on everything happening at sea. Visit cruisenews.io to see today's stories and sign up for email alerts.
Glad to be here for today's deep dive.
So, I want you to imagine paying thousands of dollars for this incredible luxury vacation.
Oh, absolutely. The dream trip.
Exactly. But your very first experience of this dream trip is literally dragging a 50-pound suitcase down a sweltering stretch of a Miami highway.
Dodging cars and breathing exhaust. Not exactly luxury.
Not at all. You're dodging traffic because the roads are so gridlocked, your rideshare literally cannot move forward. You are sweating, you are panicked, and the massive ship you're supposed to be on is sitting right there in the distance.
But you just can't reach it.
Right. And that miserable scenario, it isn't a hypothetical, it is the very real reality for an increasing number of passengers right now.
It really is. The scale of the industry has, well, it's simply outgrown its old operational habits.
Which perfectly frames the overarching theme we are covering today. We're looking at how cruising is fundamentally evolving for you, the traveler, right now, and where the industry is structurally headed next.
Yeah, we're watching cruise lines essentially rebuild the airplane while flying it. The physical port infrastructure, the psychology of the guest experience, even the environmental footprint. It's all being redesigned simultaneously.
So let's start with that physical infrastructure, specifically the friction of just getting onto a ship in Miami. We just got the fiscal year 2025 numbers for PortMiami, and they handled a record 8,564,225 passengers.
Which, is a 4% jump from the prior year. Port Canaveral might have narrowly edged Miami out for the title of the world's busiest cruise port overall, but Miami's numbers are just staggering.
They really are.
And those continuous record-breaking weekends are creating this localized infrastructure collapse. The roadways simply were not designed for this kind of density.
I want to break down what that density actually looks like on the ground, because a number like 8.5 million can feel, I don't know, a bit abstract.
Yeah, let's look at the daily reality.
Let's take a recent high-traffic weekend as an example. We are talking about 17 ships across 2 days. 8 ships on Saturday, moving an estimated 65,000 guests.
Wow.
And then 9 ships on Sunday, moving over 75,000 people.
And we have to remember, those are just the paying passengers. When a port is turning around that many megaships simultaneously, you're layering tens of thousands of crew members on top of that.
Oh, right, the crew changes.
Exactly. Plus the massive logistical tail. You have provisioning trucks delivering thousands of pounds of tomatoes and toilet paper, the fuel barges, port employees.
The thousands of taxis and Ubers.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of that is being forced through a highly constrained roadway network. And they're simultaneously battling ongoing downtown Miami construction. It just creates an absolute bottleneck.
The gridlock got so severe recently that Carnival Cruise Line actually had to issue official traffic advisories for guests boarding 4 of their ships.
Right. That was for the Carnival Magic, the Sunrise, the Celebration, and the Horizon, right?
Yep, those exact 4. And the notices essentially said, traffic is a nightmare right now, plan accordingly, but you still need to arrive during your specific appointment window.
Which is incredibly stressful for the traveler.
Because here are the real stakes. Those ships are still scheduled to drop their lines and sail at 3 p.m., regardless of the traffic on the bridge.
It's a terrifying scenario for a cruiser. The cruise lines generally do not provide refunds if you miss the boat due to local traffic.
So if you're stuck in a gridlocked Uber 2 miles away,
and that all-aboard time passes,
yeah,
you can be denied boarding entirely. You're just left on the dock.
I was actually reading accounts from passengers describing a ride of less than 10 miles, like taking a car from a nearby downtown hotel, taking nearly 3 hours.
3 hours for 10 miles. That's practically a walking pace.
People actually were walking. They were bailing out of their ride shares and walking the final stretch across the port bridges with their luggage just to make their boarding appointments.
It completely shatters the vacation vibe before you even step foot on the gangway. You arrive completely stressed out.
Right. So Miami-Dade transportation planners are actively looking at a major infrastructure solution to bypass this gridlock, building a direct train from Miami International Airport right into the port.
It's a massive undertaking, though. They're reviewing 2 primary concepts for this direct rail solution.
Okay, what's option 1?
Option 1 is a Metromover extension. This would be roughly a 9-mile track, and the appeal is that it could potentially utilize existing infrastructure, like the freight train bridge or the Miami River Bridge.
Okay, seems logical so far.
But there is a glaring mechanical limitation here: capacity. We're talking about small, automated cars that hold roughly 50 passengers each.
Wait, I need to stop you right there. 50 passengers per car.
Yeah, maximum 50.
When you have 75,000 people moving through the port on a Sunday, that mathematically makes no sense at all. It's like trying to put out a house fire with a garden hose.
You're completely right. The math absolutely struggles to keep up with peak demand, which is exactly why option 2 is on the table.
And what's that one?
A higher capacity metro rail extension. This would be a 10-mile track, but it requires building a brand new bridge over the Intracoastal Waterway.
That sounds expensive.
Extremely. The estimated capital required for that is projected between $600 million and $800 million just to build it.
Wow.
Plus another $9 million to $15 million every single year just to operate it.
Okay, but let me play skeptic on this entire rail concept for a second.
Go for it.
We know that a massive percentage of cruisers fly into Miami a day early, right? They stay at a hotel precisely to avoid the panic of flight delays and missing the ship.
Right. That's the standard advice.
So is a direct airport-to-port train actually going to solve the embarkation panic for people arriving from downtown? Or, I mean, is this really just a Trojan horse to manage the massive wave of debarking passengers?
That is the open secret of this entire proposal. The planners openly acknowledge that the most consistent heavy volume use case is going to be the debarking traveler.
Because everyone leaves at once.
Exactly. Think about the physics of a cruise turnaround day. Embarkation is somewhat staggered. People arrive between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.
Sure, they have their little time slots.
Right. But debarkation is a dam breaking. When a ship clears customs, thousands of people all leave within a highly concentrated 2-hour window.
You literally have 4,000 people standing on the curb pulling out their phones to call an Uber at the exact same second.
Exactly. So a predictable high-capacity rail line pulling those people directly to the airport clears out the port traffic incredibly fast, which in turn frees up the roads for the people trying to arrive.
Okay, that makes sense. But even if they build the train, PortMiami's terminals stretch out over a massive footprint.
Yeah, they cover a lot of ground.
So a single train station doesn't just drop you at your ship's gangway. You'd still need like an internal shuttle system just to move people from the port station to their specific terminal.
That's a very valid point. It's only step one of fixing the friction.
But let's think about the psychology here for a minute. If the first thing a passenger experiences is this intense, sweat-inducing friction just trying to get through security, the cruise line has to work twice as hard to make the actual vacation feel like a luxury escape.
They absolutely have to overcompensate.
Right. You can't just offer a buffet and a deck chair anymore. You have to curate an entire world to make them forget that stressful morning. And nowhere is that evolution more apparent right now than in destinations like Alaska.
Alaska has really become the ultimate summer battleground for big ship cruising, and it requires a completely different operational mindset than, say, a standard Caribbean run.
How so?
Well, in the Caribbean, the megaship itself is often the primary destination. You are there for the water slides, the massive casinos, the dozen restaurants.
Right, you might not even get off the ship in Nassau.
Exactly. But in Alaska, the destination is the undisputed star. The ship needs to act as a luxurious framing device for the outside world.
It's no longer just about taking you to a place. It's about curating a highly immersive story.
And the cruise lines are fiercely competing on who can curate the best, most immersive narrative around that environment.
Princess Cruises is heavily leaning into this. Building on those traveler expectations, they just unveiled their 2026 Alaska season, and the sheer scale of the deployment is just staggering.
It really is a massive operation.
We're talking about 180 departures calling at 19 different destinations, with a record 8-ship fleet kicking off in early May.
And the crown jewel of this operation is the May 3rd debut of the brand new Star Princess out of Seattle.
That ship is a monster. She is a 177,800 gross ton ship. And for anyone keeping track of ship sizes, it's always worth noting that gross tonnage doesn't actually measure weight.
Right, it measures internal volume.
Exactly. So a ship that size means a massive amount of enclosed programmable space.
She'll be operating alongside 7 other ships: the Coral, Royal, Ruby, Grand, Emerald, Discovery, and Island Princess.
They were blanketing the coast.
Oh yeah, sailing out of Seattle, San Francisco, and Vancouver. But what is truly indicative of the industry shift isn't just the physical size of the Star Princess. It's the onboard software.
The programming.
Exactly. It's how they are structuring the guests' time. They're expanding their North to Alaska program, and they're introducing a really interesting concept on the Star Princess called Appraise C.
I find this concept so brilliant. They are putting it in a dedicated venue called the Dome, and they are explicitly modeling it after the ski industry's après-ski lifestyle.
Which is such a smart crossover.
Right. Because in the ski industry, the post-slope lifestyle, the drinks by the fire, the vibe is almost as important as the skiing itself. So on the ship, it's a dedicated themed gathering specifically designed for you to unwind with localized drinks and scenery immediately after you return from a freezing shore excursion.
It recognizes that the transition from a rugged glacier hike back into a luxury environment needs a bridge.
Yes, a transition zone. But let me ask you this. Are cruise lines having to work significantly harder to entertain travelers today? I mean, do cruisers now expect a National Geographic level immersion rather than just, a passing glance at a glacier?
100%. They want to understand the ice, not just look at it while they drink a pina colada.
Exactly. They want the context.
And that's what Princess is trying to structure. The voyage starts with a Welcome to Alaska orientation, hosted by the cruise director, purely to explain how all the onboard programming connects to the actual geography they will be sailing through.
Setting the stage early.
Right. Then for the glacier-based sailings, they are rolling out the glacier experience.
What does that actually look like on the ship?
Well, this isn't just passive scenic cruising where a voice occasionally comes over the loudspeaker. They are opening up forward-facing viewing areas, physically bringing National Park Service rangers onto the ship for presentations.
Oh, wow. Real rangers on board.
Yeah, setting up dedicated ranger information desks and providing live contextual narration while you sail.
And they are pulling that thematic immersion all the way through the revenue centers of the ship, too, like the food and the retail.
They're launching Fire and Ice candlelight concerts, featuring local Alaska-based musicians.
And in the specialty restaurants, they are weaving in local flavors, things like king salmon and crab cakes at the Crown Grill, or a specialized halibut dish at Sabatini's Italian Trattoria.
They're even tying it into the United States' 250th anniversary in 2026.
Oh, with the merchandise.
Yeah, offering limited edition commemorative items like Glacier Bay-inspired Pendleton blankets.
The goal is total ecosystem storytelling. Every touch point reminds you that you are in Alaska.
But here's where we hit a massive structural wall with all of this.
The environment.
Exactly. Bringing thousands of people right up to a pristine, protected, melting glacier requires a very delicate physical balance.
Because the optics and the environmental reality of sailing massive traditional diesel-powered ships into these protected fjords are becoming highly contentious.
Very much so. To keep delivering these nature-heavy itineraries, whether in Alaska or the Norwegian fjords, the industry has to fundamentally reinvent the technology powering the ships themselves.
And that brings us to our final topic, which is arguably the most significant technological leap we are seeing right now, the Viking Libra.
This is a huge development. The ship just floated out at Fincantieri's Ancona shipyard in Italy.
Which means they flooded the building dock over 2 days and moved the hull to an outfitting dock to finish construction, right?
Yep, staying on track ahead of its November 2026 delivery.
And this is not just another luxury new build. This represents the ultimate structural evolution of the industry. Viking is designing the Libra as the cruise industry's first hydrogen-powered vessel, capable of operating with zero emissions.
It is a highly strategic engineering play. They are changing how ships are powered to guarantee future access to the world's most environmentally strict destinations.
Because the regulatory landscape is tightening rapidly, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly fast. Destinations like Norway have passed aggressive mandates requiring zero-emission operations for any ship entering their World Heritage fjords.
So if a cruise line wants to keep selling tickets to see those specific fjords, they literally have to invent a way to get a ship in and out without a combustion engine running.
That's the reality. So let's look at the mechanics of how the Viking Libra actually achieves this ahead of that 2026 delivery.
Give us the technical leap.
She is a 54,300 gross ton ship designed for 998 guests, and she utilizes a hybrid propulsion system.
Okay.
It relies on liquefied hydrogen paired with polymer electrolyte membrane or PEM fuel cells.
Yeah.
And those can generate up to 6 megawatts of power.
Now, let me see if I have the chemistry of this right. A PEM fuel cell essentially acts like a molecular bouncer at a nightclub, right?
That's actually a great way to visualize it, yes.
So you feed the hydrogen gas into one side of the fuel cell.
Right.
And the membrane inside the bouncer only allows the positively charged protons of the hydrogen to pass through to the other side.
While the electrons get completely blocked.
So to get to the other side, those electrons are forced to take a detour through an external circuit. And that detour is what creates the electrical current that actually powers the ship's motors.
You nailed it. And the best part, When those electrons finally meet back up with the protons and combine with oxygen on the other side, the only byproduct emitted from the ship's funnel is pure water vapor.
Pure water. It sounds like magic. But the logistical reality of using hydrogen is notoriously brutal.
It is an absolute nightmare to store.
Right, you can't just hook up a hose from a barge and pump it into a massive holding tank like traditional heavy marine fuel oil.
No, hydrogen has to be kept extremely cold,
Mm-hmm.
around minus 253 degrees Celsius, just to stay in a liquid state.
Which means the traditional refueling process bunkering is almost impossible with hydrogen right now because global ports simply do not have the specialized cryogenic infrastructure to support it.
Which is exactly why Viking and Fincantieri engineered a totally different approach. They are using what they call a containerized approach for hydrogen storage.
I love this concept. Instead of pumping a liquid through a hose, they are essentially treating the fuel like a giant AA battery.
That's exactly what it is. The hydrogen is stored in massive, self-contained modular units.
So when the ship is in port, a crane literally just lifts the depleted container off the deck and drops a fully loaded, pre-chilled hydrogen container right into its place.
It bypasses the port infrastructure problem entirely. You don't need a specialized hydrogen pipeline at the dock. You just need a standard cargo crane capable of lifting the container.
And the fuel cell portion of the system is being built by a Fincantieri subsidiary called Isotta Fraschini Motori.
Right, and that 6-megawatt system is precisely what allows the ship to shut down its traditional engines and run entirely on zero emissions during those navigational phases through the sensitive fjords.
Okay, but let me push back on the broader impact of this for a second. The Viking Libra is a relatively small ship, under 1,000 guests. Is this hydrogen container technology actually scalable?
That's a billion-dollar
But
question.
could we realistically see this on a massive 65,000 passenger weekend in Miami? Or will zero-emission cruising remain an exclusive luxury feature?
Scalability is absolutely the defining engineering hurdle of the next decade. The fundamental enemy of hydrogen on a megaship is volume.
Because the tanks take up too much room.
Yes, even when you liquefy it, hydrogen requires roughly 4 times the storage space of traditional marine diesel to generate the exact same amount of energy.
Oh, wow. 4 times the space.
So on a 6,000-passenger ship, dedicating that much internal volume to giant cryogenic fuel tanks means sacrificing revenue-generating space.
Meaning fewer cabins, fewer restaurants, fewer attractions.
Exactly. The physics directly fight the economics. But you really have to view the Viking Libra as an iterative stepping stone, not the final destination.
They are working their way up.
Right. Viking has been carefully building to this moment. Back in November 2022, they tested a tiny 100-kilowatt experimental hydrogen fuel cell on the Viking Neptune.
And now, 4 years later, they are scaling that up to 6 megawatts on the Libra.
Exactly. And they already have a sister ship, the Viking Astria, under construction for delivery in 2027. They're zooming out and pushing this across their fleet.
And while Viking pursues hydrogen, the rest of the industry is placing massive structural debts on other clean tech, too.
It's a widespread shift.
Yeah.
You have MSC cruises pushing heavily into LNG, liquefied natural gas, with massive vessels.
Like the World Europa and World America. Now, LNG is still a fossil fuel, so it's not zero emission, but it does significantly lower particulate matter and sulfur emissions compared to traditional oil.
Right, it's a bridge fuel. Meanwhile, operators like Hurtigruten are targeting a completely zero-emission ship by 2030. But they are betting on advanced battery packs and retractable sails rather than hydrogen fuel cells.
It's a technological arms race right now. No single company knows what the ultimate winning fuel of the future will be, so they are all investing billions into different prototypes.
Because they have to ensure they aren't left behind when the environmental regulations inevitably tighten worldwide.
So if we synthesize the entire journey we've taken today, we are watching the cruise industry rapidly evolve across every possible front for you, the traveler.
From start to finish.
Right. They are desperately trying to engineer their way out of the massive friction of embarkation traffic at hubs like PortMiami.
Trying to fix that first mile.
Then, once you actually make it on board, they are radically deepening the destination experience with highly curated edutational storytelling in premium markets like Alaska.
Bringing the outside in.
Exactly. And underneath it all, they're engineering entirely new green technology, like the Libra's hydrogen fuel cells, to protect the very waters you are paying to sail on.
The industry is recognizing that to sustain its current growth, it has to be smarter, cleaner, and much more integrated into the environments it visits. The days of simply building a bigger hull and dumping it into a port are over.
Which leaves us with a final provocative question to ponder. As these new ships evolve into completely self-contained, zero-emission ecosystems that run on highly specialized technology like modular hydrogen containers, will local ports around the world be forced to drastically upgrade their own infrastructure just to remain relevant?
That's a fascinating thought.
Right. Or will these incredibly advanced ships become the primary destination themselves, operating entirely independent of the capabilities of the ports they happen to visit?
It really makes you wonder who will hold the power in the future of travel.
Thanks for listening to Cruise News. Visit cruisenews.io to catch up on the latest updates and sign up for free email alerts.